Hey guys, welcome back. First episode of the series, Trammell Crow, baby. This is something that I'm really excited about. I can't tell you enough. But I'm gonna just dive in. Today we're gonna go through probably about the first 5 pages. I'm gonna sit here and read this, and I'll give you my opinion where I think it's necessary. If you guys have any comments, thoughts, please leave them here. We wanna know what your opinions are, and we wanna get as much valuable content as we possibly can out to you guys. But this was a real estate legend. So these are lessons, as I described a little bit earlier, that Trammell Crow distributed to the rest of their company, and it was from multiple partners within the company that sent out emails and just different opinion pieces wherever they saw that they could add value. So right here, let's get started. This is in March 6, 1989. Certainly, living through the collapse of the Southwest real estate market has been a true tragedy for us all. Likewise, also would be a tragedy for us not to share our experiences in this unique environment with our fellow partners around the company. Hopefully, they will not have to experience anything like the Southwest disaster, but perhaps what we have learned will be better to prepare them for the future. Please try to get to me by March 15 a brief memo outlining the mistakes that you have made in the following categories. Number 1, strategy. Number 2, personnel. 3, administration and overhead. 4, individual projects. Certainly, a good market tends to hide one's mistakes, while a bad market overly dramatizes them. Still, since memories are short, I believe it is a worthwhile exercise for all of us, including me, to perform this analysis. As soon as I receive all your responses, I will organize them and send them out to the field in an anonymous fashion. I look forward to hearing from you all. This is great, right? This is him giving a little preface. He sent this to what looks like about 20 different people within the team. Some pretty interesting names here. Sandy Gottesman. Live Oak Gottesman's an existing brokerage today. There's a lot of people that came from this school of thought that were with Trammell or learned from Trammell that started their own brokerages here in Austin. And so it's kind of like a football deal where you got the head coach and they've got all their understudies, and those guys go out and become head coaches. A lot of what happens in brokerage came directly from Trammell. So this is from one of the partners that received this email and gave some of their notes. So remember, number 1 was strategy. This is what Mark put. Strategy: buying service centers as incubators for deal. Building an office building in an industrial park. Building an office building 100 miles from a city. Buying a single site in an industrial park. Buying a single site 20 miles from a Trammell Crow Company's park. Developing a freight consolidation system for tenants. Taking partial liability on all long-term development JVs. Land positions in excess of near-term requirements. So this is Mark's strategy and different things that he was working on within the company. Personnel: hiring non-partner material for leasing. Under-hiring for property management. Administration and overhead. Not terminating marginal people earlier. That's a good one. That's what they always say is hire slow and fire quickly. So that's one of his administration and overhead bullet points. Not instituting financial controls and overhead approvals earlier. So kind of letting the money just fly out the window, not really having checks and balances in place. Not taking net absorption versus gross leasing. Not monitoring liability exposure vis-a-vis liquidity. That's definitely important. As the market changes, you've got to have cash on hand to be able to withstand the tide and the downturn in the market. Individual projects. Doing or buying marginal deals because the money was available. Don't do that. That is great advice right there. They had capital coming in from investors, so they were just doing deals that seemed like they should because they had the money. Always do great deals. Extrapolating spec space needs from last leasing. Taking liability unjustified by capital base. So signing on as a guarantor on a lease, that's obviously a huge component. You really want to know what you're doing. So that's really great. I think that's one partner's lessons. I love how they put it as 1, strategy, 2, personnel, 3, administration and overhead. And this is the next one. We're going to dive right into it, guys. So this one's from John. So strategy. Number 1, we lost an early deal or 2 because we quoted high. Then we expected to negotiate to a lower level. Our competition started low and gained credibility from our approach. Okay, that's a good one. Number 2, our land debt was based on 5-year build-out, floating rates below market, and interest funded from the investor. This works well when rents are growing, but in a decreasing rent market, land values get too high to make sense from a development perspective. There's some gold in here, guys. Number 3, don't get caught in a market frenzy. 100%. We experienced that personally in Austin. There was a frenzy starting in January, and we really didn't. We had read these notes, and we've learned some of these things as well, but we were still buying properties, and the market dropped, and the properties are still great deals. If we had sold more product during the frenzy, we would not be selling for the prices we are today just to cover shorts. That's a tough one. So they were not selling at the height. They had to sell when it was down because they didn't have enough liquidity. Great lesson to be learned right there. Number 4, move to non-recourse as soon as practicable. So non-recourse means you're personally not liable. Recourse means you are personally liable. So that's great advice, right? Like you can sign on as recourse, but as things change, you get a little bit more leverage and ability to get out of deals with a new lender, whatever it may be. You can now sign on potentially with non-recourse debt. High interest rate, non-recourse loans have been better for us than low interest rate recourse loans once times got bad. Yeah, that's a hard lesson right there. Number 5, keep a conservative strategy as to bad times. Generally, we did not know that we were in a bad market until it was very, very bad. Remember, it doesn't pay to say it can't get worse or can't last much longer. Number 6, don't rely on development fees to cover a major portion of overhead. 100% agree with that. Number 7, make every deal at the best rate that you can. The deals we made in the early months of the downturn now look like great deals in retrospect. At the time, we did not feel good about most of them, but today they are our best deals. Number 8, we were too lenient on credit requirements, especially where we spent money on to finish out or to refit. Bankruptcies and business failures have hurt our cash flow and value significantly. When we had a problem tenant we reacted too slowly, and we ended up with high attorney fees, little or no rent, and substantial time periods before we regained control of the facilities. Banks will not be your friend when the tenant bellies up. Never trust a lender. Unless you're working with Freddie. Those guys are great at Prodigy Mortgage. Be tough on issuing lien subordinations. Make the bank a contractual party in order to collect rent and recover damages if the bank becomes uncooperative. That's a good one I wouldn't have thought of. Number 9, lease, lease, lease. Keep your buildings leased. Occupancy helps cover taxes, insurance, and other costs that we can pay during vacancy. Don't believe that just because rents have gone up 5% per year for 5 years, that they can't or won't drop 25% in 1 year. These guys were dealing with a major downturn in what they were dealing with. This is extremely important as things are somewhat turning down right now with interest rates going up. This becomes even more relevant. But hold a lot of these lessons to the heart. Number 11, control your inventory. Our hardest discipline has been to lease first, then build. Money has always been available. Don't build just because you can get your hand on non-recourse loans. Too much inventory in a market drives all rents down. Lower rents lead to lower values. Number 12, don't be afraid to ask for price breaks early from suppliers, lenders, and outside partners. Increase and maintain restricted cash in order to be more competitive. Very few of our partners were willing to put cash back into projects after distributions were made. Guess they already spent it or invested it. However, most were willing to go along with the increased reserve if we properly explained our reasons for doing this. So they increased the reserves that they had on properties, or they would have for when times go bad, right? They're paying out distributions and maybe people were going to the beach or whatever, but these properties might need that cash in the future. Number 13, quality is important in a tough market. Tenants, lenders, and buyers will give credit to quality. It is really tempting to cut corners when cash is not readily available. Number 14, don't put too much faith in a single lender, unless it's Freddie. These guys are great. But it's true though, lenders and banks have limits, right? And so you want to have as many good relationships as you can, especially if you're working with community banks. They can change on a dime. Despite the myth, large banks do fail, and the new guys are not necessarily fair to you just because you're their customer. Number 15, don't buy too soon when things are going down. For example, we offered a contract for $22 per square foot in 1987. That will probably get $17.50 per square foot this year. So those are all strategy tips from John. Now we're going to dive into personnel tips, which if you're just individually flipping, personnel still comes into play, right? You're dealing with contractors, your team, whatever it may be. But if you're building your business, you have employees and people that you got to hire and fire. And so there's some lessons here as well. Number 1, stay lean, even if you can afford to get fat. It is much easier to hire someone than it is to lay someone off. Postpone hiring someone until you absolutely must. Number 2, we hired people who are competent to do the job as described when we hired them. I think now I would pay a little more or accept a little less experience and hire people that could eventually do more than the job described. When times are tough, fewer people are available and more is required of them. That's good right there. If you find yourself overstaffed, don't wait too long to resolve. In a tough market, it is fairly easy to upgrade your mediocre employees with better qualified people at lower prices. Savage. Number 3, let people know what is happening so that when raises don't meet their expectations, they are not shocked. They all read the newspaper, but unless they are warned, they rarely believe that a Trammell Crow Company is affected. They had some reputation there at Trammell. Number 4, work hard on morale. That begins at the partner level. Let people know that you're working hard to solve the problems, and then you are confident that you will solve these problems. Remember to maintain management skills even when you don't feel like it. That's important, guys, when you're leading a company or running a business. You have people that rely on you, and you got to be a strong leader, and you got to show them a clear path and instill confidence in them. All right, this is on to the administration and overhead component. Number 1, a strong office manager is critical. When times are tough, a partner's available time is greatly diluted. More people call with tough problems. If the office management is in place, your focus can be towards the outside without deteriorating the quality of your operation. Don't be afraid to delegate administrative responsibility. Number 2, employees must understand overhead costs. let your employees work together in groups or individually to create cost-saving ideas. I love that. I'm a big believer, and we haven't been able to do this at all of our companies, but I love the idea of laying out all the financial numbers and letting everybody understand where you're at. You know, you're running a business. You don't have to hide that you're trying to make money, but if people understand how much are we paying, where we're at, you know, in a sense, you have the ability to keep score, and people know which direction they need to go or where they can be helping. So I really like that. Number 3, it is hard to take away benefits. Example, car phones, free cold drinks, assistants, interns, beepers, etc. If you don't need it, don't provide it. Don't just do it because you have the money. I love it, guys. So these are the 2 different guys. So this was from Shane Myers, and the one I just read was from John Walsh. Hopefully you guys find this valuable. I love it. I think there's a ton of content that can be shared with these notes, and we're going to continue to put these out there. I got 103 more pages to go through. So we're going to continue to record, give our opinions, our thoughts. If you guys have any questions, if you even want to see these documents, you can have them. We're happy to share them. Just reach out, give us your email, comment. We're here to help. Appreciate you guys. Trammell Crow, lessons learned. We're going to keep this series going. Matthew Teifke with TRE. Let's keep grinding. Let's keep getting after it and use these lessons.